I am here today to refute a claim made by our fellow student, Sibeli, that autonomous cars are dangerous, supported by claims that autonomous cars will have to interact with non-technological objects, safety of autonomous cars depends on universal use, and computers in autonomous cars are open to technological problems. In support of autonomous cars having to interact with non-technological arguments, my adversary used an example of a car accident where a driver took control of the autonomous car and applied the brakes to prevent colliding with a pedestrian and ended up getting rear-ended by another car switching lanes. What she failed to identify was an important part of the evidence that the driver inside the car applied brakes under what the report called abundance of caution, which could be identified as unnecessary since the car was already braking in response to the pedestrian. And at the moment of the accident, the car wasn't even utilizing its autonomous features. It was being controlled manually. Autonomy aside, it is also fact that negligence resides in the car that collided with the autonomous vehicle. It is stated on a website for California car accident rights that if your car is involved in an automobile accident in which your vehicle was rear-ended, the driver that hit your car from behind will be determined to be at fault, no matter why you stopped. For the fact that the autonomy of the car was disengaged and law stating that liability is to be held against whomever hit your car, the argument for self-driving cars to be dangerous in this situation does not make sense. Next, the speaker backs her claim saying that safety of autonomous cars depends on universal use. She claims that it's impossible to convert all cars to autonomous ones, and it is too costly to make this change by providing evidence that technology adds $70,000 to $100,000 to the cost of the vehicle. This evidence proves true and valid for fully autonomous vehicles, but in this claim she overlooks advancements in current technology. To make something universal, you must integrate it slowly. And in an article titled, "How Much Do Driverless Cars Cost?" it contrasts fully autonomous cars, the additional $70,000 to $100,000, to semi-autonomous cars, saying that Honda's advanced driver assistance systems, which have controlled steering, lane changing, acceleration, and braking while the car is on the highway, adds only an additional $1,800 to the cost of the vehicle, making it more affordable for the average consumer. Yes, it is true that fully autonomous cars are very expensive and definitely unaffordable by the majority. Semi-autonomous cars are becoming more affordable, and with constant improvements in technology, which depreciates costs of autonomous qualities in the future, owning autonomous vehicles cannot be proven to be impossible. In her final supporting claim, she states that computers in autonomous cars are open to technological problems. All technology is subject to bugs in the system. However, there is no current sufficient evidence that such bugs have caused autonomous vehicles to crash and to be dangerous. In an article titled, "It's Impossible to Find Out If Self-Driving Cars Are Safe" report, according to research firm Rand Corporation, autonomous vehicles would need to be tested hundreds of millions of miles, sometimes hundreds of billions of miles, to complete its safety comparisons with that of normal driving cars. Currently, there's only around 1.3 million miles tested on autonomous cars. The article later talks about how Google has experienced a little more than a dozen accidents and said all of those were caused by humans. Yes, autonomous cars are subject to technology failure, but there is not enough evidence to support if potential technology errors truly make autonomous cars unsafe. So, in my refutation, I have proved that there was not sufficient evidence it was invalid to claim that an autonomous car which disengaged their autonomy features in an accident, not having to do anything with the danger of a self-driving vehicle, which was rear-ended by a normal driving car. An argument that costs of autonomous vehicles are invalid because in the future, with depreciated costs of improvements in technology, it could be possible for people to own autonomous vehicles. And there's not sufficient evidence to support that technological problems have made autonomous cars unsafe or dangerous. Thank you.
All right, organizationally, everything is clear. You signpost the individual points as you go through. The argument that you make on the example that the advocate presents, I thought was pretty good, although you don't really give a source for the criticism of the accident itself. You did have good evidence, though, about how rear-ending a car automatically results in liability to the person who did the hitting from behind. I thought that was pretty reasonable. I do think you're missing a trick in pointing out that this is a singular example, and so there's a reasoning problem that the advocate's running into there that's a little bit problematic. On the second point, I thought you had good counterclaim here suggesting that economies of scale ultimately reduce the cost, that we start off with semi-autonomous cars, that those costs are going to be relatively low in the short term. And that the idea that it's a process, I think, is a good one to be making here. Since nobody's saying overnight that this is going to change. It's going to be a process by which these things occur. I don't remember whether or not the advocate suggested there was any time limitation or expectation in the argument. So how important that is to their position is not particularly clear. I think from your point of view that it benefits you to be able to say that this is going to be a process that's going to take many years for it to occur, and it'll be a very practical process because, like all things, the technology will get better, it will get cheaper, and people will get used to it. It just takes a little bit of time for those sorts of things to happen. I was a little confused because the evidence that you gave on the last point seemed to suggest proof for the advocate's position that we don't have enough information on this yet. Even the title of the article is it's impossible to determine how safe these cars are. It seems to kind of take the contrary position to what you might be expected to argue. The notion, but I think maybe there's a way to fit that in with the argument again that this is a process that we're testing here and that we're early in the process. And maybe the summary response should be it's premature to arrive at the conclusion that the advocate is talking about when we have some good data that indicates that this is really a technological process that just needs to be fixed. All right, thank you.